6 to new details from the courtroom in the trial for Melvin Guevara. He's accused of killing a man at his own birthday celebration last summer. And as KLTV7's April Peardant tells us, the jury is set to begin deliberations tomorrow morning.
What was supposed to be a night of celebration ended in a nightmare. Tears were shed inside of one of Smith County's courtrooms today as a 911 call was played back. It's the night prosecutors say 22-year-old Melvin Orlando Guevara came uninvited to Kelly Eduardo Torres' home, where Torres was celebrating with his family his 22nd birthday, but ended up being shot to death. Guevara was arrested in July of 2024 and charged with murder. Today, his trial began with a jury selection. Among the witnesses taking the stand, Torres' mother and sister. His sister saying Guevara began arguing with Torres and another friend, Guevara's ex-girlfriend. She continued by saying she noticed Guevara had a gun and turned to put her child in a safe place before hearing several gunshots and seeing Guevara run out the front door. Torres' mother also took the stand, recalling seeing her son in a pile of blood and was confused as to why someone would shoot her son. Other witnesses included Smith County's deputies and a forensic pathologist took the stand as well. April Peardant, KLTV 7 News.
And trial will resume tomorrow morning with deliberation.